Hi everyone, Lynn here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm really excited because I'm going to show you something I've been wanting to show you for a while now, and it's how I make my Franken Pocket Pages. And this is my newest journal, the In My Garden journal, made from the kits that I have in my store, and I'll put a link to that down below. So let me show you the inside. Oops, piece of lace. This is my Franken Pocket Page. And it's just made with bits and pieces of various papers that I've used in the journal already. It's a great way to use up scraps. You could do this as a page in your journal, but you're going to have to figure out how you want to deal with it. You'll understand more as I show you how to do this. So because my journal is huge, I had to make this into two pieces. I'm using cardstock here because this is what I have that's big enough to cover my cover, which it is roughly 9¼ by 11¼ inches. So I'm not going to get a piece of paper that way unless I go to scrapbook paper. And like I said, this is done in two pieces. And this is my second piece, which I've already finished this part here. Okay, so this is going to be my pocket. All right, does that make sense? So I'm going to do this part here. Now, if your journal is smaller than mine, you could probably do this on paper, and I've done it on paper for another journal. It doesn't matter. You just need something to glue your pieces to. The one thing that you can do with, if you're using if you're making a smaller journal, is that your pages probably won't be as tall. You could theoretically, depending on the size of your journal, make your pocket page in one piece by just folding up one end. Now obviously this would have to be, a much smaller journal, and likely it would be more like that size. But you can do that. It's not much different, but a little bit different. Okay, so I'll try and explain as we're going along exactly how you would go about doing it this way as opposed to this way. I like doing it this way better. Yeah, it does eat up a little bit of room on the side because I'm going straight to this here, but that doesn't bother me. I mean, this is pretty wide to begin with, so that's not an issue. You could always make your pocket longer and a little bit deeper to tuck in behind. So if you don't want the gluing on the front, that's up to you. Alright, so I'm going to move this stuff aside and pull out the papers that I've already picked out, and I'll be right back. Which end you start at, but I would suggest that you start at the top. Okay, and I've already decided I want this piece here, and I want this piece here. Okay, and there's no overlap on this here at all. Okay, this is the basic. I'm just going to put them in the order that I have them on my picture so I don't have to keep going back and forth. And turning on my phone. That's going to go there. That's going to go there, like that. So this is going to be upside down view. This goes here. This goes here. Okay. So this is the basic idea of how I want my papers to be. This is my bottom here, and that's really not going to show. So I'm going to use paper I don't care about. Why waste the prettiest papers if it's going to be underneath the pocket? I mean, technically speaking, I should probably move this one. So let's see what happens if I switch this around. What do I think of that? Do I like that better? Do I like that less? Actually, I do like that better, so we're going to go with this plan. Okay? So remember, this is my bottom, this is my top. I'm working backwards because I'm starting from the top and I'm working down. All right? You would do the same thing on this paper here. Okay? So you would actually line your paper with your papers that you don't care about. All right? And then start building up this way. Or build up from here and then, yeah, it's probably best if you start from the top. But just make sure that whatever isn't going to show, whatever is covered by your pocket, don't use your prettiest papers on that, because you can always find something to do with your pretty scraps. All right? Okay. So then I'm going to use double-sided tape to put my papers on. You can use glue. That's up to you. I generally use tape because more often than not, I end up switching things around after I've already put it down. If I use glue, then I'm ripping the paper, and that's kind of pointless. So I'm going to start with this one here, and I'm just going to put one strip of tape, and I'm going to make sure that I am not anywhere near my edges. Now, I need one piece that's going to be put right into the corner. Okay, that's the toughest piece to align. Everything else aligns to that. So this is my next piece, and I'm butting up against the edges of my paper. I am not overlapping in this here. That's the whole reason for having the paper in the background. Now you can overlap just like we do regular Franken pages, but then you end up with a lot of bulk, which is fine if you're doing just, a single page in your signatures, but this could get really thick, and I don't want it that thick. Yeah, you're still going to have two pieces of cardstock, which this cardstock here is actually pretty thin. Normally, I would use copy paper. That's my normal choice. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put some tape on the next piece, and I'm just going to keep lining these up without going underneath it or over top of it, and putting nothing right in the on the edges. Okay, and I'm okay with it if my pieces extend past the page. That doesn't bother me because I can trim this after the fact. All right, so and you would do the same thing on here. The only thing is when you're using a folded piece, and I suppose to an extent it would be the same way too when you're using plain white, and you do your pockets separately. You might want to ink your edges, or you could, when you're putting your piece, let's move this a little bit, when you're putting your pieces, so you do this part first, okay? And then you do your sewing, and I'll show you how you do that. All right, once you get to this point here and you put your pieces on, you start at the top with your prettiest papers and work your way down. The one thing that I might do on the folded edge, because the folded edge will actually show more than it will on the side pieces. That's from experience, okay? Is that I would overlap just a little bit, okay? Just a little bit. Doesn't have to be much, but just enough. Let's say not even 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/16. And that covers up any white that you'll have showing. Alternatively, you could use colorful paper, whatever you want to do. So that's really the only difference with doing it like this, okay? So let's go back to this here, and I'm just going to do this real quick and line it up. And I'm going to just go in, and again, I'm not going underneath. See, this is why I have to do this. I'm going, yeah, like that. All right, I'm going butting up. And now that I've messed up my, oh, I want it this way. Apparently I can't glue straight. Alright, yellow I think is the next one. Again, I'm just putting a little bit right here. Don't need a lot of tape. It's just to hold it in place until you can get your stitching done. That's really all. Yeah, let's go that way. All it is. The other thing that's good to know about this is that you really don't want to be using paper and cardstock together. I mean, you can. You're just going to have a harder time lining it up. That's the only difference because of the thickness. So you have to keep that in mind. All right. So I do want pink flower here. Okay, that's good. This one, I believe, is next. I want that like that. Turn this around because that edge is not pretty. But you can see I'm really not worried about the sides right now. And that's another thing too. You know, you could overlap on each side and trim afterwards like we're going to do, but trim a little bit wider, and then that way your paper underneath doesn't show. So that is definitely something you can do. All right, I'm going to go like this. So I think I just changed what I was doing. All right. Okay, what did I do? This is off. So yet another reason. Yep, I was definitely off. And then yellow will be my bottom piece. So you could use any cardstock or papers at that point. So this is my finished piece, or my semi-finished piece. So now what I need to do is trim around the edges. Okay, so I've trimmed around my paper, okay, and you can see the white, okay, but you really don't see it much this way. The only time that you really see it is when you fold your paper like this, okay. That fold, because you're putting your paper in behind here, let's just use this as an example, okay, it bulks it up a little bit on the edge, so it has a tendency to show more. All right, even if you're lining it up, it's going to show more from the perspective like this. Okay, so that's really the only reason why I would just overlap a little bit on that one. So then the next part is to sew. Now, what I do is to sew my papers together, I do a zigzag stitch, and I usually do the vertical ones first. So I'll be stitching there, here, and here. And then once I'm done with those, then I go back and I do all the horizontal stitching. Okay, so on this piece here, all right, you definitely need to be able to sew here, and then you need to be able to sew here. So you don't want to fold this over until you've stitched your papers together. All right, so let me get my machine and I'll get this sewn, and I'll show you how that looks. Okay, so I just wanted to show you. You can see it right there. There's my vertical stitching. Okay, whoops, I need to trim that. I don't back stitch on here. The only time I back stitch is when I'm doing the edges. So let me go ahead and finish the horizontal, and I'll be back. Okay, so I'm all done. I've done my vertical rows and my horizontal rows, and you can see I did not back stitch in any way, shape, or form. I'll do that once I sew around the edge, and I use a straight stitch, and let's fix the machine now because I've done that before and messed it up. Okay, so now the whole reason for putting your papers on another piece of paper, okay, is because, and doing your stitching first. There's two things, okay. Doing your stitching first, especially if you're doing a page like this, all right, with the flap, all right, you need to be able to sew all these and these as well, and you don't want to do that while it's folded over. That's kind of common sense, but you know, I thought I'd bring it out there. The other thing is the reason for the paper is for this. I mean, yes, you can stitch two pieces of paper together, and if you're just gluing it to your cover, you'd probably be fine. But if you're using it as a page, guess what's going to happen? It's just going to fold over, and eventually it'll get, see right now it's wanting to go like that, okay? It won't stay in place the way it needs to. So basically the paper underneath holds the stitching in place, which is why I prefer using paper, but in this case I didn't have a choice. All right, so I hope that makes sense to you, that if you're doing a page like this, all right, then you need to do your stitching on this side here, and then open it up and do your stitching here. Then you can go ahead and glue it down, and you can, you know, just do a straight stitch across the top if you want, and then sew all the way around. However you want to do that, that's up to you. All right, I already have my second piece here. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and stitch around the edge. So I'm going to do that. I'll be back. Okay, so I'm done with all my stitching, and you can see that I did back stitch on the bottom. That's not going to show. And then I do have, you know, threads hanging off. If I'm going to cut them, I'm going to cut them after I go around the edge, because that kind of helps hold your stitching in place. I mean, you do have glue on there. It's not like it's going to come apart. You know, it might be a whole different story if you're using it as an actual page, but this is, you know, an inside cover pocket. Some strange reason or another, I'm having a hard time. And I gotta tell you, I love my machine, I really do, but I find that depending on what paper I use, that I have to keep adjusting the tension, and since this is going to be in the back, it really doesn't make any difference to me what it looks like, because it's pretty freaking messy. So whatever, there we are. That's how that's going. Alright, and I've already decided that I want my pocket is going to go this way. Generally, I'd probably put that like that, but on the same side, I don't like it, so I'd rather do it this way. Okay, sorry about that. I had to stop the video because lawn care is here and it's too noisy. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to glue. Now, could I have just gone ahead and did my top stitching at the top and at the bottom, and then just went ahead and glued all, you know, glued and sewed all the way around, or maybe not the bottom, but yeah, I could have done that, but I didn't do it that way, so you can do it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and get my glue, and I'm using the Beacon 3-in-1. I like the Fabri-Tac as well. The only time I don't like this glue is when you're near the end of the bottle and it starts getting really thick. That's the only time. Okay, I want to make sure I have. So I'm going to glue obviously just on the 3 edges, and I'm putting my glue on this stitching as much as I can. My stitching is not very straight. I have learned to just deal with it. Can't draw a straight line either, so there you go. Alright, and then I'm just going to line these up on the bottom edge as best as I can, and go ahead and press them together. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and glue this in my album, or my journal. Sorry, I know I keep saying album. I am going to use double-sided tape, just because I like using double-sided tape. I'm going to use the Score tape, and I'm only going to go around the perimeter, and probably a couple strips in the middle. Just because the glue will hold it, but the tape will hold it as well. So kind of like having both. I think that's from my days of making mini albums and scrapbooking, which, I don't know. I might get back into that. I don't know. We'll see. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and I'll open my journal and I'll be back. Okay, so I've got my glue all over my tape. That gives me some playtime, and some in the middle as well. And I'm going to go ahead and glue it in place. I mean, surely you know how to do this. Trying to figure out how far I need to be. Up a little bit. Try and get it somewhat straight. I really try not to worry too much about it. And then I'm going to use my clips here to hold it down until the glue dries. Okay, because I get anal about things possibly coming undone, although I'll be honest, I've not had something like this come undone before, so and I'm definitely going to go over that ribbon, and then there we go. So now just want to make sure this side is down. I've got something underneath the cover so I can actually push down on the chipboard underneath, and it's not the end of the world. It's not going to cave. So now the next thing that you could do if you wanted to would be to add lace to the top edge of your pocket. You could add punched papers, whatever you want to do. Okay, and this, I cut a piece of lace in half because it was too wide, so my plan is to do this, and just like I did on the front cover, like that. And then I'll probably add something else here that'll really pop. And so yeah, I think that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this is something that you think you might go ahead and do for yourself. I'm going to be gluing while I'm still talking. And I do use the Aleene's for this because I don't want the glue oozing all over the place. For that one anyways. Oh, I need to trim. Yeah, did that just not like open your eyes to the possibilities of other things that you can do with paper? I know it did me. When this idea came to me, and I'll be honest with you, I'm going to give the credit to the Lord for it because that's where it came from. And this is, I am so blessed, and I'm so thankful for his creative ideas. All right, next one. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do this one here, and I'm not going to use a lot of glue, but I am going to use some. I'm kind of stretching it pretty thin here. And yeah, normally I would probably let the bottom one dry first. I'm always trying to figure out which side is which on this stuff. This is like the last little bit of this green, and it blends nicely, so. Alright, so what was I saying? Oh, does that not give you more ideas for things that you can do using this method of making a Franken page? I know it did me, and I do have an idea specifically for a excuse me, piece of home decor. And it probably won't be till next week because I'm in the middle of gift making for my daughter-in-law's birthday and fall making, and anyways, yeah, I'll be back with that idea next week. So thank you all for watching. Thank you for liking and commenting on my channel and for subscribing. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.